Hello everybody and welcome to the video I've been wanting to make for nigh on 4 or 5 years. I am older, I am fatter, at the moment I am much sweatier because we're in this sweat box. It is 6:15 in the evening and we have had a 30-degree outside.
It's 32.5.
32.5. It's a giggle, but it's worth it, and I can tell you why it's worth it. Because we get to touch the UDOS. Well, I get to touch it, you get to watch. This is
Only one in the UK.
the only one in the UK.
Yeah.
It's a very special machine. Kelly, tell us about this machine.
So obviously it's a machine that's been designed, developed and made by LC Power Tools.
Mm-hmm.
It's, as you said, been a long time in the making. I've been very fortunate to see prototypes of the clever mechanism inside there, and we had a discussion earlier that you do actually, I think, remember it as a 4-in-1 or a 3-in-1.
Yeah, well, it's varied, hasn't it?
Yeah. So it's grown in the amount of functions it could do. So it was starting off less. It's now a 5-in-1 action machine, which is covering 5 different types of orbits and a rotary, sort of 4 orbits and a rotary.
So for the geeks out there and me, what we have rotary function,
yes.
conventional rotary function,
which is the R. There's an R on there.
handy.
Yep.
And then we have S for sanding, which you could use for polishing.
It was a decision made that is 8mm orbit, which is your old style machines from years ago, which was all you had. And in the early days you had a transformer because it was an American machine.
Yes.
It was literally 110, 240. And it was an 8mm orbit. And it's always traditionally really difficult, and it still is, to get the best cut with an 8mm machine. We're talking heavy cutting, to get rid of swells. So sanding has changed over the years from a 2.5mm orbit to a 5mm, and I think there's another machine manufacturer come out with, they call it a dual machine, where it's a 12mm. So they said it can be sanded and polished. I'd argue if 12 is a very large action for sandpaper, but of course you can compensate that action for the grade of sandpaper.
Yes.
And that's all it is. It's just an action size against the coarseness of the grit. You make a larger movement, you're going to cut more.
And so you want to find a great
So it made sense that there's already other orbits in there. So what they've basically done is an 8mm, a 12mm, a 15mm and a 21. That has at the moment covered everything that's on the market.
And it goes, as I say, from rotary to the biggest orbit that you get on any polishing machine now.
So at the moment you're in position 3, which is actually the largest DA action, 21mm. So if you wanted to do any of the DA actions, you just line up that blue collar there, so this one there, you line up.
I'm going to do this now as if I've never done it before. In fact, I did it 2 minutes ago before we had a slight technical failure, but essentially this bit moves around here, like that. So we're going to put this into the middle, and then we can pull this down,
Push it down,
like that,
and turn it.
and then you can adjust. So that's P2, 15mm, P1, 12mm,
That's it.
S, 8mm.
And now rotary won't line up. Oh, you was lucky. You were so lucky this is lined up. That's the chance.
Already a master of this tool.
Because I was about to show you that there's a different process for the rotary.
I've made life really difficult, haven't I?
That's easy. So when it's in the rotary mode, all 3 lines have to line up. And that's very rare when you stop a machine that all 3 lines would line up. Yeah, it was magic. So so at the moment you can go back into there. Now, if this turns, that's still lined up. You'll see now.
You struggle.
It won't go in. It physically won't go in.
Oh, well, give me a monkey wrench, I'll have a crack.
So until that line, it's very simple. All 3 lines line up.
Then it will.
Yeah, and I'm not even looking straight on. So now it's in rotary. Now it's locked.
I'm going to compare this to a Glock 17. If you haven't taken one apart, it's a bit of a pain, but as soon as you've done it a couple of times, it's really, really easy. And
it's a completely new action that no one's ever done with a machine polisher before.
You've got new hand motion, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's muscle memory required.
Yeah, pulling the trigger. We're all familiar how you pull a trigger. Now there's this new thing to do to change it, which has never been seen before.
It could become a special code. It's like forward assist in the LSW. Anyway, moving away from guns rapidly. I've noticed you've got 3 noses.
Yes. So
what do you call these? Horns?
Handles.
Handles.
You just wanted to be a bit kinky, didn't you?
No.
I'm sure you did.
I didn't think it was called a horn. I thought this was a big horn. No? Okay, my bad. Never mind. So these handles are for people with different sized hands?
Yeah.
Styles?
And do you know what? I'm even going to say, because I've got very large hands for my physical body size.
They're very soft.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And so that means you'd think I'd use a large.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's a different reason when I use different handles, and some people have their own ways. The reason why I've gone from, bear in mind the machine comes with a medium-sized handle, which makes sense. So this is the optional extra small handle. And the reason for that is just simply, more in rotary mode, I can actually tip and rock very easily. Yeah. That would be more awkward, but some people that maybe not as strong would like the purchase of that to twist. But that's like the handle, I find that very awkward, where that is a very natural motion. So, and also having this smaller nose means I have more clearance around protruding for mirrors, spoilers,
and also just for visibility.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, totally. You said you was a novice. You're not a novice.
Totally novice. But the other thing, so the answer with the handles is not how big it is; it's what you do with it. Yeah. And in terms of steady,
but you've got three size options,
and they've all been. It does feel like it's been ergonomically designed. There's long development period.
Rubber bumpers. So on here, when it sits down, very early machines used to roll over.
Yeah, that was
you put it in your trolley and it roll over, flop over. So you got, and they're replaceable. Yeah,
so you can wear them down.
Yeah, this is replaceable.
You don't want to rub up its back too much. And the whole piece of kit. And what I'm going to say, and I'm being honest here, it's a chunky monkey.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, I could if you held it like this and had a bit of momentum behind it. I'm thinking cricket bat. It's a decent weight, but that's kind of a quality thing. I think there are two sides to it.
Well,
one
it's
is
metal. There's a lot more metal in there.
There's a lot more metal in the gearbox, and bear in mind the gearbox is again heavy duty gearbox. Yep. Seems very well built.
I said earlier, this is metal.
Exactly.
You can hear. That's rock hard, solid.
Better here. And as I say, with 1200 watts and all of the gearage going on there, the one thing you noted, and it's something that I think is important to say, so that when you get hold of yours, because obviously you're going to get one of these, so that you don't run to the hills and think there's something wrong, because of the gearage in here, because this is metal as well, which converts heat, it gets warm. It doesn't get hot.
No.
You can't find it.
And that was one of my staff using it for an entire day on a car, and I asked him, again it was like, here it is, put it in the setting you'd normally use, you do what you need to do with it. And at the end of the day, I said to him, how you get on? He said, it's fine. He said, weight is not an issue on obviously all the flat panels. It wasn't overly heavy. It's a few hundred grams heavier, but it wasn't hard to get used to. There is a way we polish. We've got our hoists and we've got the stalls, so we rest our elbows on our legs when we're polishing. None of it is a problem, is it? There's no issues at all there. And he said, the only thing he noticed, literally, was the one thing he went, it got warm. I said, what bit got warm? And he said, this metal piece. Oh yeah, it's the gearbox and it's metal.
And it's a heat sink, effectively.
Yeah. And that was a long polishing, all day, constant polishing. Its characteristics, I'm going to say, is a change.
It's an attribute. It's not a fault. So if your gearbox is getting hot, unless it's getting too hot to touch.
That's like you're driving your car saying my engine's got warm.
That happens quite a lot. In fact,
I shouldn't have said that to you with the head gasket. And okay, that was a wrong use. Your gearbox oil gets warm after a long time of driving.
It does indeed.
Unless it's got warm after a long time of being used all day. That was probably safer.
That was safer. We should have gone with that in the first place. Thank God this is recorded. In summary, as I say, it is chunky. It reminds me, frankly, of an older, heavier machine.
To me, I think I'm certain when I weighed it. I didn't have weighing scales because I didn't paint back then when I had a Nikita. I think my front of house has actually googled the weight of a Nikita, and I think this is exactly the same as a single or rotary action machine, which everyone grew up on. And we all remember buying one because it was an improvement on body shop machines, and that was much larger than this in physical size. That also got hot. It was very noisy, but it never wore out. It was robust.
In fairness, in those days also nobody had power steering, so we were all built like this anyway.
But it's the same weight as what a single action machine was doing years ago, and I never worried about weight. I didn't ever have anybody tell me, that machine was heavy.
Yeah, exactly. It's an attribute.
Yeah. So it didn't have the nose handle that we're all familiar with now. It had a big D handle, and because it was the only option, no one complained.
Yeah,
it was the only good option we had.
Well, they were the good old days, isn't it? Where you had half a baked bean for dinner and you felt full. Anyway, moving on again. This is actually a more unique machine than any other that you would have seen on the internet, for the simple reason this is 240 volts. And what I want to ask is, how long is your ding dong going to be? Or do you not know?
Well, should we measure how ding dong now? I don't actually know. Whatever that length is, that.
So I'm going to keep talking.
We haven't talked about this actually. This is pretty much. It's the last pre-production, or it's the last prototype, sorry, and it's not going to change. What you see now is what you're going to get. It's just being mass produced now, if that makes sense. So whatever that cord is what we're going to get. And
that I think is probably 200 inches. Okay, so well, hang on. Let's do it in Kelly's. You stand still. Stand up, Stuart.
Go on. So put it.
So, yeah.
There's be one and a half for me, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 1.5 Kellys. There we go. New SI unit, 1.5 Kellys. If it's not long enough, complain to Kelly. Now, I want to talk briefly, because we're, as I say, this is a whistle-stop tour. We're going to get to play with it. We're going to put a full review in issue 11 of the magazine, warts and all, because that's how we work.
Yep.
But I want to talk to you about pads, because Kelly's role here, part of it from Lake Country's point of view, is expertise. He is a professional detailer with God knows how many years of experience. Well, we do know exactly how many years of experience, yeah.
Too many.
And it's about honing the pad set that Lake Country already produce. And bear in mind, there are two companies at play here. It gets terribly complicated.
It's a family-owned business, but there's two separate businesses.
Two entities.
Yeah.
There's no point going to the
But there's a crossover.
There is. We've been talking about it.
Yeah.
In terms of the adrenaline pack level, I mean, I was all G'd out by the time this came in, it has to be said. But long story short is because this is designed to be an all-in-one machine, there has been a motion to try and create an all-in-one pad, or at least a pad that can be used in all the different settings with this machine.
And that's the biggest feat of engineering there, is actually we've all got familiar now that pads in all brands and manufacturers, they've all widened their range of pads to be very specific, and it comes back to, we talked about in a video about what was the one thing you would choose and what's changed, and I actually quoted the microfiber pad.
Yes.
It's changed the trade a lot. Most people would understand that wouldn't work very well on a rotary, and it's not really designed for that. So we are now in an age where there's many types of orbits and sizes and strokes of machines, and people are now, obviously like country manufacturing being a big contributor to that, making pads specific, very, very specific, almost niche for just a certain orbit or throw. So this is really tricky for them, isn't it? Because they've
Going
now
backwards. They used to be as specific as possible, and now they've got to be as general as possible.
Yes. So to try and make, say, like this pad here, which is a micro wall, so it's not a microfiber and it's not a wall pad, to make this pad work for all motions. And now they've had to engineer and use all their knowledge of the specific engineering of each pad and make a general pad that's going to work very, very efficiently on all the settings. So that's why we got called the UDO. The UDO pad is a line of pads, which is only 3 at the moment, which seems a very small amount. And I say at the moment, I might be involved possibly making bespoke for even the European market or the UK market. It could happen.
Well, it's a needs and wants thing.
Yes.
And again, in America, it's all about the all-in-ones. I'm big fans of the all-in-ones, you were saying. Whereas over here, part of the joy of detailing, part of the thing that you gain with experience is you can look at paint. If you're at Kelly's level, you can look at paint and you can assess, given a machine and a compound and a pad, and you can kind of get pretty close first time in what you want. And it's the ability to be able to adjust all of those things. So the risk with an all-in-one is you end up with a jack of all, master of none. Now, the good news is it'll still work in terms of doing what you're doing. But
what we've essentially got here is now 5 different actions and 3 different pads, which makes 15 different combinations. So if you were to choose the P2 15mm machine, you would have to have obviously lots more pads to have the variation of what you get here with 3 pads. I call it, there's 15 choices with only 3 pads. You would have to have a rotary, you'd have to buy 15 pads. It would seem hard work and doesn't make sense.
It would, but
so I feel there's slightly more knowledge, tuition on my behalf, so that people understand when would you use this pad, on what setting, in what situation. Does that make sense? So
the only really variation from what we already do in terms of choosing pad, compound and machine is that the machine stays consistent, but it doesn't because you change its mode. And I mean, for example, if this was this quite short head on the ball side, so it's going to, on the one hand it will clog very easily, but on the other hand you can't have long hair if you've got a long throw.
Because it won't. Well, it's just flopping to and fro. It's not actually abrading the surface.
And you don't want a floppy wool when you're using a 15mm. Is what he was trying to say. So the answer is yes. And bear in mind that with Lake Country making so many pads, it would be well within their interest to do 1,000 different pads for it, because then they can make 1,000 different cells. But actually, they've said no. We're going to try and make it nice and simple.
This is almost a different business model that they're trying to make what you see here, excluding that, but these are a nice option. That there should cover everything for a general purpose person. It'll cover everything. Where there's a slight pain point, let's call it a pain point, is like I said, they wouldn't possibly know exactly what's setting. So there's going to need more tuition or understanding. I'm getting to it's a professional machine.
Yes.
I think people that buy this would probably, hopefully not need my help and understand what a 21mm action does compared to a 12mm action. And would completely understand whatever pad they've chosen compound, that the 12mm, hopefully, that does a 12mm orbit is going to have a lot less cutting ability than a 21.
Yes.
If they don't know that, then
put the machine down and back away to
but it's also, remember though, about someone that's starting new that now hasn't got to buy 5 different machines.
Well, that's an interesting topic you bring up, because
No,
there's a
I come into
commercial
this.
argument. Yeah, this is tricky, because if you're an established professional detailer, you can have a big range of machines, different machines for different tasks.
And you've understood the differences.
You understand the differences, and the machines, because they're dedicated to a single movement, may be slightly better, or they don't. For example, if you've got a lightweight rotary, this is heavier than a lightweight rotary, and so you might want to revert to that. So who is this for? And the answer is, I think, threefold. One is, if you've got lots of employees, you don't want to buy each of your employees 3 or 4 different machines when you can just give them one of these. The other thing is, I'm just thinking, if you're running mobile and you do occasional detailing now and then, that's going to work really, really well. Looking at the fitments here, I wouldn't be surprised if a cordless thing came out at some point.
Nor would I.
We didn't comment possibly at all, but so there's that. And then the other side is, again, if you're starting out, if you want to hone it, you get these people saying, oh, you're not a proper detailer unless you just use
But remember, I'm here to aid those people.
Help to usher them along.
And help them and teach them how to use and get the best out of the machine. This is why I've come on board. So you can see there's a need, because this is a very specialised machine, but a jack of all trades as well, because it can do all of them in one, but it's also very specialised. It's the first of its kind. It's like someone buying a McLaren Senna or buying some, and I'll use a McLaren analogy where they've come on the market late.
Yes.
You've got Ferrari and Lamborghini, slightly Porsche, but Ferrari and Lamborghini have been doing it for years. McLaren's come on the scene with almost like hydraulic suspension, with no springs and all active damping, and they've come into the scene with a brand new product, changed the rules which are there, and it has mixed reviews because it's so different.
Yeah.
And I think if McLaren, as an example, had a lot more into the engineers behind explaining and, say, teaching the owners how to get the best out of the car, they might have had slightly better start.
And there is such things coming out too soon, because quite often if things do come out, thankfully this really didn't come out this too soon.
It's been changed many times.
This is right on time. But
I mean, crazy geeky things like it's got air ducts, cooling ducts when it's in rotary mode. So they line up and you can see daylight through there when you put a torch, so they push air through onto the pad.
It's almost like a Scooby Scoop.
It
I
is.
do like a Scooby Scoop.
Yeah. So
there are lots of nice touches. Any other nice touches you want to highlight? Can we pop your top, so to speak?
oh, you want me to? Let me get an Allen key.
I think I'm just going to go and get Alan, because he's got a key for this. Essentially, inside this, when we do open it, I already had a sneaky peek under the covers. There is some very cool mechanical engineering going on in there. Kelly's just going to find Alan. Oh, he's cooperated. That's good.
Obviously, I've got to get not a metric Allen key.
Because they're American, so we don't need Imperial.
Yes. So
to be fair, last time we got Imperial in America, they got very upset with us. No, I mean Colonial. Whoops.
So it's quite fascinating. What you can see, and now you can see it's all metal in there, and that's, you know,
it's a proper job.
So what I'm going to do is I'll turn it all and line up. Now we're going to have a problem, a real problem here, because I didn't set the rotary mode with the pad.
Ooh.
So let's put that back on this way. But to be able to adjust it, so all I've got to do is line up this backing plate.
Never had this problem on Blue Peter.
No, they didn't. So
John Leslie.
Yes. So now we're out that. I just need like. So now I can show you.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see that there's the spindle going one way and the counterbalance going the other, and there's a gearbox in there that's doing that. It's bevel gears and to do that, and you can see there's different weights in there for different size backing plates.
So this is a really clever thing when you realise is with a DA is that you've got a counterweight to make it smooth.
It's fixed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
the,
fixed.
and the counterweight has to, yeah, it's exactly, it's fixed.
It's
So
spinning on its spot, and then the pad location is offset,
Yeah.
and there's a counterweight the other side. It's just a fixed item, so it's just orbiting around an axis, and you've got a counterbalance weight opposing the offset. Both are completely moving in tandem to counteract that.
I really want to borrow this and just take it completely apart and have a look, but I've been told I'm not
But
allowed
not
to.
because it's the only one at the moment.
And also, if I take something apart, it ain't going back together again.
Yeah.
One thing I would comment
It's
on
not
is
Subaru.
they always go back together again, or they mysteriously burn and an insurance claim is made. Look at the size of this bearing. It's got a proper hunky bearing there.
Yeah.
That's
It's a very industrial, robust. You know, all of this is all metal, and there's aluminium in there.
make a great murder weapon.
Yeah. So yeah, it's there's a lot going on there.
In terms of thing, have you got soft start
Yes.
and variable speed?
Yes. Yep.
So it ticks all of those boxes.
Yeah.
Any other features you think we would be wise to tell people about?
Apart from, I suppose, there's things that other manufacturers they've got the airflow going through, and you can see there's very large cooling ducts there. So what they've done here, and this is probably why this warms up. You don't have this same gearbox on a normal conventional machine, and you'll notice on other machines where this cooling is, or the air exiting, is in a different position. It's further up.
Yes.
Now, so they've got very large holes to
Yeah.
make sure the motor, because of the 1200 watt, is running cool.
Two decent sized ducts then.
There's actually, if you look, yeah, there's actually underneath as well.
Think, slightly fat and
Yeah.
hard. Definitely.
So yeah, it's going to be a great machine. It's
Ooh, you've got a hole switch as well.
yeah, of course, it's all the normal things you'd see on a normal machine. They've not put them on. It's soft start. It's got a variable speed controller. It's even that as you adjust it, it ramps up slowly. It's electronic. It's not just on or off.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, big question. When can we get our hands on it? Not the royal we, as in when can people get their hands on it by passing with their money? About £700 we're thinking.
Probably, yep. So at the moment, it was originally meant to be summer in the UK, which is now as we film. This should have been available.
Can you tell?
Yeah, it's a bit warm. And so it was meant to be in North America late spring, and it was meant to be 2-3 months here later, so summer.
Well, North American bespoke, so surely they'll send it to us first, right?
Yeah. So it was meant to be the wax stock that UK you could actually purchase them on the wax stock. We know how close we are now to what would have been the wax stock, but because of the coronavirus, that's set this back, and obviously set everybody back in the world. The last I've heard is that means in America it's going to be really mid to late summer, and we're looking at September currently.
So
September they should land and be
Christmas
available.
presents.
Yeah.
Put that around your tree.
September is what we're hoping for, planning for. They're in production now. There is passed all the certificates. They've been tested. Many famous detailers around the world have actually had these for a few weeks and were told to do their worst.
And that's a really good point, actually. If you want to see this thing in action and get some more kind of feedback on its actual use,
You
rather than
Google
just
it,
talking
you
about
will find people.
You've got Rennie Doyle, you've got
Yep.
Mike Phillips, you've
Larry
got
Casilla.
Larry Casilla,
Yep.
lovely guy. And of course, you will have a Pro Detailer magazine where we will put in
Yep.
some feedback once our actual detailers are in, rather than me just poking and prodding and seeing if
I mean,
it's right.
let's see what I can do. I mean, I've got ideas where there'll be free to enter competitions. I've already been speaking to Lake Country Manufacturing and LC Power Tools about this. That someone in certain organisations and groups can come down and have a half a day playing with
touching
it.
feeling session. Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. It's my role. And I want to do that. I like doing that.
How do you, your global,
Director of Global Training.
Oh, that's very fancy.
It is very fancy.
A way of saying technical ambassador, really.
Yeah. I mean, also I started as an influencer, then it became a brand ambassador. Very quick journey where
You don't want to be an influencer.
no.
Overrated.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
agree.
So it's trying to help everybody really use this machine.
Cool piece of kit. This is the last video that we've done here.
We can actually go and sit and cool in a minute, can't we?
Oh, that would be awesome. And we're going to get some B-roll of this, we're going to do a shoot around this lovely workshop, and we're going to be putting loads more into issue 11. You can grab your copy at www.pro-detailer.com. At this time, it is customary to shake hands.
Yeah.
Obviously, with COVID, we can't. We did share our diseases earlier, but none of us got COVID. It's mostly just the clap. But all I'd like to say is thank you very much, Kelly, for putting up with us here. Should we do an elbow bump?
Yeah, go on then.
There we go. You've now got herpes. Moving on, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch up soon.
Bye-bye.